What's up again, everybody? Today we're going to jump into a classic constructed deck tech for what has become surprisingly my favorite class in Tales of Aria, and that's Elemental Runeblade and Briar, Warden of Thorns. I will be honest with you, when they announced Briar, I was a little bummed out because I really wanted a wizard. I think that was the main reason I was bummed out, because I really wanted a wizard in this set. And in a way, Briar's kind of a wizard, except you get access to Runeblade cards. And believe it or not, I actually really enjoyed Runeblade in general. I both like Chain and I also very much like Viscerai. And so I guess the more that I've sat down and thought about it, the more I've just kind of fallen in love with this class, particularly with deck building for this class. It's an enigma wrapped in a mystery, surrounded by a strange question mark, and I love it. Because you can do so many different things with Briar, Warden of Thorns. You can tap into her effect. You can just don't even care about her effect and just do other stuff. I mean, it's just really cool. So I'm going to talk to you about what I have here. This is a deck that I've literally, for the better part of a week, just messed with. I've had like... I should take a picture. I've had like 6 deck lists, maybe 7, I don't know. I've gone through like 7 different iterations of deck lists, and I guess I've settled on something that I'm like really happy about. I'm happy with like all of them for different reasons, and I think that's why I've really enjoyed deck building for just this class and this deck in general. We're going to run the Rosetta Thorn for this, by the way. Rosetta Thorn attacks for 2, but if you play a non-attack and an attack action card, it deals 2 arcane damage. This is one, like I said, of multiple decks that I've built. It was really hard for me to pick one of these decks to like show you. I picked the one that I feel is probably more consistent, mixed with a little bit of like interesting jank, but that's what I went with. We're going to run the Skullcap. We're going to run the Tunic. This is a Tunic deck, so you're going to Tunic on each turn, and you're going to forget your Tunic trigger. The backup is Crown of Dichotomy if you want the Arcane Barrier. We're going to run the Snapdragon Scalers, and of course we're going to run the old Grasp of the Arknight. You will use Grasp of the Arknight as well. You're going to jam Grasp down and definitely block with it, and also definitely make some Rune Chants in this deck. Okay, this deck it's a hybrid deck. This is like a mid-range deck. I'm kind of calling it Breakpoint Briar because oftentimes we're attacking the Breakpoint. The Breakpoint specifically of like the 4 attack action cards. We want to target and attack that Breakpoint using all of these attack actions, and then we want to do dirty things, crazy things with our non-attack actions, either prior to or during, most of the time prior to, our big multiple attacks each turn. We're kind of shooting for like 2 to 4 attacks each turn, but it really depends on what we draw. There's flexibility built into this deck, and I've thought a lot about the ratios that you need with regards to like Earth and more importantly Lightning, because this is more a Lightning focused deck than it is an Earth focused deck, and thinking about how you actually build those ratios in is incredibly important. So here's what I'm going to do. Instead of doing the normal fan out thing, I'm going to actually just cut real fast and just splay out all of the attack actions. We'll talk through those first. Okay, now that we have all of these spread out, these are generally our main board attack actions. We've got 6, 12, 18, 24, 27, 29. Technically, I should have one more Blossoming Spellblade, but I actually haven't pulled a third one, which is kind of funny. I'm going to probably crack a case just for fun after this. In fact, I haven't done it yet, so maybe you should let me know if I should crack a case like on camera, or if you think I should just do it off to the side and get more cards to build more decks. Whatever you say, I'll do. Put it in the comment below. Nevertheless, we want one more Blossoming Spellblade, and as another main board 3 attacks, we want 3 copies of Enlightened Strike, which I can't find my Enlightened Strikes like anywhere. I have no clue where they are. Nevertheless, let's talk about why I've chosen these. So first things first, these attacks over here are fantastic for poking at that Breakpoint. For example, we have 3 4 attack Arcanic Shockwaves right here. We've got 3 4 attack Rites of Lightning. both of which, if you fuse, will deal arcane damage, which puts on a little bit of extra pressure. And then looking on this entire column, 3 Entwined Lightnings that can gain Go Again. They naturally attack for 4 for 0. They can gain Go Again if you show any Lightning card, which we have sitting out right here. And then 3 Lightning Surges, which are fantastic for fusing and then arsenaling and then revealing, like out of the arsenal, playing them for Go Again for 4. So we attack this for a breakpoint a lot. These blues back here are for 2 and then push arcane damage, and based on what I'm going to show you in the non-attacks, you're going to see that these blues have a lot of playability as well. And it's the same thing with these Ball Lightnings. By the way, Ball Lightning is disgusting. It is a really, really good card. I had the yellows in here for a while, and then I cut them recently because I wanted to add in some Enlightened Strikes and some other stuff like that into the sideboard. But you could also run the yellows if you like. I like the reds because if you play any buff on these reds, then they get really dangerous in and of themselves, and your opponent just wants to block this with 1 card. The blues are the same thing. Oftentimes the blues you treat as a non-attack action card, and you just play out there for its effect. Which Ball Lightning, if you don't know, it says whenever a lightning or elemental action card deals damage this combat chain, instead it deals that much damage, +1. And of course, Go Again, Go Again, can gain Go Again. By the way, those 3 can gain Go Again as well. So we have the capacity to go a little bit wide, which is really, really good. These Blossoming Spellblades are actually more sideboard cards than they are main board, but you can run them in the main board, which is why I put them here. If you do want to run these in the main board, then oftentimes you are not going to play these in the first cycle of your deck. You're going to wait till the second cycle of your deck. You're going to pitch this at some point during the game with an Earth card, which we don't have a ton of Earth cards in the deck, but we do have a few. And so you can pitch this alongside of that, play it on the second go around, and in fact you get way more value on the second cycle of your deck because you can pick from more things based on the Blossoming Spellblade effect, which, by the way, if you don't know Blossoming Spellblade, it's one of my favorite cards. It's like one of those weird janky cards that like you really want to like make work. It's got the double fusion, which makes it tricky, but it deals 6 damage, and you fuse it, it deals 1 arcane, and then it does some insane crazy stuff if you do actually fuse it. So a lot of benefit from playing this card. You can, I do want to point this out, you can play this early in the game because we do have buffs that can land on it. So this could just be a card you play for 6 damage or buff. And it can be a sideboard card because you could play this very wonderfully if you plan, or if you want to plan against going up against a lot of prisms. So these pop heralds very nicely. And then finally, Singeing Steelblade is a really good 4 attack that deals 1 arcane damage. It just threatens stuff. Now the buffs that we play in this deck don't necessarily fall on this, and so this is something that you could swap out. In fact, I did have like yellow Arcanic Shockwaves and yellow Rites of Lightning, but I found that I just liked another 4 attack, and I liked this one because it dealt 1 arcane, and that can get a little bit dangerous if your opponent's just taking a bunch of arcane over turn after turn. You could play like red Meet and Greet. You could play more elemental stuff if you wanted to. You could play red Consuming Volition, but I chose red Singeing Steelblade, excuse me, because red Singeing Steelblade is just plain cool, so why not run it? And that's why I chose it. By the way, the Enlightened Strikes are in there because Enlightened Strike is really good in this deck and really good in most decks, and it's just a solid card. So in summary, looking at these attack actions, we can see that we have the ability to go wide with Go Agains here, Go Agains there, without having to create tokens that give Go Again, which we can still do as well. We have the ability to deal arcane damage with these cards right here. We have the ability to threaten the Breakpoint very scarily with Ball Lightning, because Ball Lightning will like add extra damage if your opponent doesn't block these 4 attacks very cleanly or easily. And so with this understanding, let's look at how our non-attack action cards affect and kind of amplify this game plan. All right, now let's take a look at the main board non-attack action cards. And I want to start with Electrify, because Electrify is incredibly good. This card is so good. I was really not impressed with it when I first saw the effect. I was like, okay, yeah, sure. But this card is so good for Briar in so many different ways. In fact, there's a lot of these cards that are so good for Briar in so many different ways. And this is one that I literally made cuts in other places, as you can probably see here, just to play more Electrifies. And it's kind of weird. I actually think I like Electrify just as much, if not more, than Plunder Run. As you can see, I have a ton of them because it just sets up like 5-card hands really nicely. So Electrify says the next time an attack action card you control hits a hero, it deals 1 damage to them. And then if you play this from your arsenal, you draw a card, so it replaces itself, and it has Go Again, of course. It costs 1. The blue hits for 1 extra damage, the yellow adds 2 extra damage, and the red adds 3 extra damage. Playing any of these from your arsenal, it feels amazing. Having a 5-card hand, right, so 4 cards plus your arsenal, playing, like pitching a card, playing this, floating, like, I don't know, pitch a blue, float 2 resources, or even pitch a yellow, float 1 resource, play an Electrify, and just draw another card feels so good because it also puts you 1 step closer. Where did I put those tokens? 1 step closer, everyone, to creating an embodiment of lightning token, which gives Go Again to one of your attacks, because you just have to play 2 non-attacks here in one hand to trigger that and give something Go Again. And that enables so many nice little effects, like Electrify into Gorganian Tome just enables that Go Again, or Electrify into any of these like buff attacks. Super, super good. And this is also really good when you're attacking a breakpoint of like 4, because your opponent's like, okay, I'm okay taking 1 damage blocking with a single card from hand if that's all you're gonna do. But generally, it's not all we're going to do. And also, if you are saying, well, if you take 1, you're also going to take 3 more from Electrify, it makes your opponent have to commit more cards from their hand to avoid that over-the-top damage. And because they have to commit more over the top, then you're basically ripping cards from their hand in different ways, in a different way than you normally would. These Weave Lightnings are fantastic in this deck because they fall on just about every attack that we run. You can just drop Weave Lightning on it because lightning or elemental attacks are what we generally run, except for those Singeing Steel Blades and those Enlighten Strikes. These buffs fall on those. Plus, if you fuse that card, it gains automatic Go Again. So like Rites of Lightning, you have to like hope that you've dealt arcane damage in order for it to get Go Again. Nah, you just do this, it gains Go Again. Or Arcanic Shockwave, it gains Go Again if you can fuse with these. And we have enough, based on these numbers right here, we have enough lightning cards, both here and with our attacks, that we can reliably fuse those cards when we see them. And then the other ones we don't care about fusing, we care about buffing them or threatening. And that's the beauty of this setup and this deck, and it's why I've like tooled around with it so much. It's so much fun to make changes to and try to tweak and make better in little ways. It's just super fun, okay? It's super fun. All right, Weave Earth is also really good. We run these because they're good and they cost nothing and they can help us create Embodiment of Lightning tokens. This one buffs for 3, this one buffs for 2. If you fuse the attack that they buff, this one buffs for 4 and this one buffs for 3. So playing a 4 attack down and then fusing it after you've played Weave Earth means you're attacking for 8. And that's really good. Attacking for 8, super solid. It's really fun to attack for 8, especially when there's some extra like thing that you have to worry about, or that thing has a Go Again and you can follow it up with another attack afterwards. Pulse of Candlehold is literally just here to like fuse with. It's also good because it's a 3 block, it costs nothing, we can play it down and we can fetch like a couple of powerful attacks and put those on the top of the deck to set up a crazy big turn. And I actually did this when I was testing this deck. I played this after using it to fuse a few times. I played this so that I could go and get like Ball Lightning and one other thing, and I jammed those down and I played them out, and it made a lot of damage. I'll just put it that way. Gorganian Tome draws you a card, it replaces itself, and it helps you set up for creating Embodiment of Lightning tokens. Plunder Runs, because Plunder Run is super scary. If your next, like whenever your next attack hits on that turn, just like with Electrify, the same sort of requirement is met. When an attack hits this turn, you'll draw a card and there's a buff applied to you. And then we have 2 Stings of Sorcery. I have a 3rd Sting of Sorcery in the sideboard, so you can run 3 of them. And I've toyed back and forth with just running 3 straight up and then running 2 straight up. I think both are are fine options. The fact that this can just go down at the beginning of a turn, help make that embodiment of lightning token along with some of these other non-attacks, and then just put you know, like an arcane damage onto some threatening attacks is just super good. This card's really, really good, and I'm really glad they nerfed Chain, because this would have been really upsetting in Chain. That card would be yeah, not so good. It would be real bad. Okay, so these are the non-attacks that we play. There are, let me count real quick, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, maybe 28. We actually have a few more as well in the sideboard. So let's actually look at the sideboard and kind of talk about why I have these cards in sideboard. Okay, so sideboard time, but before we get to that, I forgot to talk about there's 3 Art of Wars in the deck. The Art of War is pretty good. I actually don't love it in comparison to, like, obviously in Chain it's insane because it does everything you want, right? But we have 3 Art of Wars in here, and sometimes it just does enough to make itself really, really nice. Now, in sideboard, we have 2 more Earth cards, 2 more Weave Earths, 2 more red, like 1 red and 1 yellow, and we put those in there because if you want to side in more Earth cards or more buffs, feel free to do that. I took them out specifically because I just wanted a leaner deck overall. 3 Command and Conquers, you can play these if you want. Our deck has the resources to pay for these generally. Most of our stuff costs 0, like, and 1, so you can definitely pay for Command and Conquers. I have them in the sideboard just because you know, like, the buffs that we run don't fall on Command and Conquer, but you can definitely just slap them in the main board if you want to. It just makes your deck larger. I also put these in here in the sideboard because you can side them in for Prism matchups and pop Heralds with them. And that is one thing that we want to add more of probably, and we'll talk about that as we go, because the sideboard is actually not complete for this deck. 2 Lightning Presses, you could run 3 if you want to. It's not going to hurt my feelings. These are red. I don't think of running anything but the red. Maybe you think about the yellow, but I think the breakpoints work out really nicely to buff for 3. I've already talked about the 1 Sting of Sorcery. You could side that out and put it in the main board if you want to. It's up to you. I kind of like just having it in sideboard and then bringing it in because, again, it creates just a nice leaner deck of like 60 some odd cards. Very few, like 63 cards overall. Like 61 to 63 feels really good. The more you go, feels okay. But if you kind of know your breakpoints at that, you know, like 60 to 65 card deck, it's easier to kind of calculate out the Earth and the lightning percentages. And that does leave, like, I don't know, 5 to 7 cards, depending on how you swap things in or out, in the sideboard that you could put into the deck. And things that I was thinking about adding were like Ninth Blade of the Blood Oaths. You could put Snags in. If you like Chains of Imminence, you could put Chains of Imminence in there if you feel like you're pretty good at deck reading and kind of getting your timing down. There's a lot of different choices that you could put in there. Some people even say, like, with the amount of buffs that we have, you could run like Force of Natures, which I actually had in the deck for a while and actually took out. You could run Force of Nature if you think that you can line up Force of Nature with Art of War. It's fantastic. Force of Nature, by the way, I should zoom in on Force of Nature. This is actually in the deck before I made some changes like yesterday. After you play this, if you hit with an action card, if its attack is greater than its base, you just draw a card off it, and if you fuse this, then your non-attack or your next attack gains +1. So this is fantastic with Art of War. It's fantastic with like Weave Earths, things like that. But if you want that effect, just in general, that second effect to set it up automatically, then you have to fuse it on that turn. And you know, you probably could run these. I just started finding, like, man, I kind of want a leaner deck, so I started cutting things that didn't seem as necessary. This is a good one to grab, though, and put into the deck because it does block 3. It's a non-attack action card, and things that block 3 that are non-attack action cards get really good when you can make Embodiment of Earth tokens, because those non-attack action cards get +1 while defending. So basically you can just like hit with a couple of attacks, and then this can be a 5 block, which is a really disgusting block. A 5 block non-attack feels real good as well. So that's the sideboard for the deck. The deck is basically complete. I think there's like 5 cards that I could add in or add out that I haven't really decided on, that I've kind of teetered on back and forth, but that's essentially where the sideboard sits. Okay, as far as what a turn might look like with a deck like this, I mentioned it early in the video. It is a flexible deck. It can do lots of different things. It can go wide, it can kind of go tall, it can thread the line between both of those. And so here's an example of that. I pulled 4 cards from the top, and I have simulated the turn where I have Arsenaled and Electrify. So this is somewhere maybe early to mid game. And I drew these cards. Let me focus up for you. Get that focus nice and tight. I drew Blossoming, Yellow Weave Earth, Lightning Surge, and Arcanic Shockwave. And in a scenario like this, like starting with an Electrify, pitching the Blossoming Spellblade away seems fine, drawing a card into a Weave Lightning. Then you could literally just jam down. Like if you wanted to, you could go Weave Lightning, and that would create an embodiment of Lightning token, and then do Weave Earth, which is kind of crazy because that's just a lot of buffs. And then you could either play, I think the better play obviously here is to play the Arcanic Shockwave Blue, which comes in for 2, show the Lightning card to fuse the effect and deal 1 arcane damage, and this would come across for 2 base with an Arcane plus 3, so 5 plus 2 for 7, and Electrify allows you to, if it hits, deals 2 damage over the top. Now we don't have a resource floating here, so we are just attacking for 7 and threatening 2 on top of that, but if we do have a resource floating, then we'll do some even crazier stuff. After this attack is dealt with, the embodiment of Lightning token, by the way, gave it go again. This would clear, so our 7 damage, threatening, possibly dealing 2 with the Electrify, is either still up and maybe they blocked it all. If they blocked it all, then you come across with a Lightning Surge for 4, and you're happy about that. And if they didn't block it all, then the Electrify hit and the other attack hit, and you created a couple of Embodiment of Earth tokens, which will make your your next non-attack hand able to block better. And you could just choose to Arsenal this card. If you choose to Arsenal it, it's going to gain go again when you play it on the next turn. So you can see there's like some crazy stuff that could happen, even with just a middling hand like that one. Out of curiosity, I am just going to simulate the next turn because this deck is too much fun to look at and mess with. So here we have a Plunder Run, which we do want in Arsenal. We have a Ball Lightning and a red Electrify, which is something we also want in Arsenal. And this is the interesting thing between these 2 cards. You want both of them in Arsenal because they both get like better from Arsenal. But if I wanted one, I would probably want Electrify in Arsenal more because of the cycling draw a card effect. So this is an interesting turn because you could do a few different things. Like you could just start by playing Plunder Run and playing Sting of Sorcery, so that you can get the Embodiment of Lightning token if you wanted it right away. But you don't even have to create one, because with this hand, you can literally just play Ball Lightning, Lightning Surge, and Lightning Surge will have go again from Arsenal, and then like Rosetta Thorn. And so here you're threatening like to draw a card off of Ball Lightning thanks to the Plunder Run. You could draw a card if this hits. The Lightning Surge, if it hits, you could draw a card off of that, and if it hits, it deals 1 extra. And then Rosetta Thorn is dealing 2 damage and 2 arcane damage. You don't get the draw card effect off of that, and you don't get the buff off of that, but even just this combo is super nice. And if you wanted to go crazy with it, you do just jam the Sting of Sorcery, and the Sting of Sorcery then you don't get to attack with Rosetta Thorn, but the Sting of Sorcery then makes this deal 1 arcane damage. If they don't pitch to block it, it deals an extra arcane damage, and this deals 1 arcane damage. If they don't pitch to block it, it deals an extra arcane damage. And all of that allows you to Arsenal a red Electrify so that you can set it up for next turn. It's like stupid stuff like that. It's fun to do. Like, it may not be the like most streamlined thing yet, but it's just a lot of fun stuff to just draw cards and try to string together big or wide attacks, like giant or wide attacks. It's super, super cool. I've really enjoyed messing around with Briar, trying to build something that's super interesting and feels consistent with all of these effects, like all of these lightning and earth effects. I have found it to be an absolute blast. If you like this current iteration of this deck, or if you'd like to see me iterate on this deck further, let me know in a comment below. Let me also know what you'd like to see next. Do you want to see a different Briar deck? Because like I said, I have several. If you'd like to see a different Briar deck, let me know. If you want to see a different hero, tell me what hero. If you want to see Oldhim or if you want to see Lexi, sound off in the comments below. Hope you guys enjoyed this one, and as always, everybody, thanks for watching.